All right, welcome to another volume of TheFray. My name is Darry, hosting again. TheFray is a show where we bring on luminaries from the fighting game community. Well, luminaries in one bump that we'll get into in a second. But it's a rotating cast of characters who come out to discuss fighting game community-related topics. Tonight in the building, the bum that I mentioned earlier, one of my personal favorite commentators, the best color commentary guy in the business from Avoid the Puddle. You can catch his Tekken tutorials at avoidthepuddle.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at avoidthepuddle. Eris, how you doing?
You almost got it. You missed three letters. Avoiding the puddle. I'm doing great.
Oh, my bad.
It's cool. What's up, man? I didn't even know you were gonna say me. I thought like Ultra David or something was gonna be on the line that I didn't know about. But what's up?
Nothing, not much. From Austin, Texas, the proprietor of Arcade UFO, holding it down for the anime scene in North America. Ryan Harvey, aka Fubar Duck, how you doing?
Oh, very good. Good evening.
From the East Coast, one half of the dynamic duo representing Team Spooky tonight. You can catch his work as the producer at MLG next season. Arturo Sanchez, aka NYC Furby, aka Saban. How you doing?
Hey, yo, what's up? Next time you can shout out my YouTube channel though, FGC Savin on YouTube. But thank you, Darry.
There you go,
You're doing
man.
very
There you
well.
go. FGC7. YouTube.com/FGC7.
There you go.
And then the other half of repping Team Spooky tonight, you can catch his stuff at twitch.tv/Team Spooky and youtube.com/Team Spooky. Victor Fontanez himself, Mr. Spooky, how you doing, man?
What's going on, Darry?
Then in the producer's chair tonight, as always, Chris Seglia. You can follow him on Twitter at Chris Seg.
Oh wait,
And then,
we already started.
From you can see his work at iplaywinner.com as part of commentary team at iplaywinner.com. You can catch him. You could have caught him commentating Evo last year, and you can possibly see his work in the future with IPL. Magus1234. You can follow on Twitter at Magus1234. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. I didn't know we were live. I thought we were just
No,
hanging out.
we started.
Yeah, I guess so, right? I'm doing good. How you doing, Derry?
We're good. So first things first, let's talk about Street Fighter 25. That was this past weekend in Burlingame, California at the SFO Hyatt. The venue was godlike. For those of you guys that couldn't make it out, they had a ballroom that was about the size of the Evo ballroom at Caesar's Palace. Plus, they had an adjoining lobby where they had a bunch of casual setups for Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Darkstalkers was on display. They had some setups for Street Fighter Cross Mega Man, the game that they announced for free download on the 17th via Capcom Unity. There was some setups for Puzzle Fighter, for Third Strike, even a couple of Super Turbo setups. So most of the Capcom games that people like to play competitively were represented out in the lobby, and you could play them on some Mad Cat sticks that they provided. And then in the ballroom, they had plenty of cool sponsors. The Mad Cats was there, speaking of. Terry Kaneda with his World Warrior t-shirts at Kaneda.com. I think Asus was there with AverMedia was there. Actually, they were both there. AverMedia was there. Asus was there. Capcom Unity was there with some of their merch. So it was a pretty cool event. We had the grand finals in 4 different Street Fighter titles spanning 25 years. We had Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix in classic mode, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike Online, Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition, and Street Fighter Cross Tekken. We'll start with Super Turbo, where Damdai defeats Afro Legends in the grand final 3-1, and then John Choi places third. I think this was the one on the call last week where we were all pretty much predicting Damdai was going to take it. I know Arturo was very much in favor of Damdai being the favorite. Is anybody surprised with how this tournament played out? As far as I think, the only surprise for me was how far Choi managed to get. No offense to John, but third place against that crew was pretty good.
No, I think actually you had it backwards. I think everybody else rooted for Damdai, and I said if Afro Legends picks Boxer, he might win the whole thing. But he didn't pick Boxer that much. He went to DJ a lot, which was kind of surprising to me against Damdai since he's had such good success with him playing as Boxer. But I think what was really interesting to me was how Choi handled Afro Legends with Guile on Boxer, which is generally like a rough matchup. But he was able to clutch out a lot of wins with his old school skills. He still lost though, but that was kind of amazing to me.
Magus, what did you think of Damdai's play?
Damn Dad was awesome. But I've been watching him play. I've been following his, as much as has been broadcasted his Street Fighter 2 career, and he's sick. He's actually any game he picks up and he's really good. So you could tell he's a smart Street Fighter player. I was a little depressed that John didn't win, but I think, putting my bias aside, justice was served, as I feel like it wasn't most of the games that was played. The better player won, and that's kind of, as a Street Fighter player, if you really care about the game, that's what you always want to happen.
Well, Afro Legends and John Choi played in losers finals, and that's a match the two of them have fought several times. But this was actually the first time that Damn Dice faced Afro Legends in a tournament, and you could kind of tell that Afro Legends at points was having a little bit of difficulty getting some reads in on Damn Die, and that definitely played out in Damn Die's favor. He seemed like he was in good shape through the match. He was kind of in control of what was going on. And that was actually the first time he played Afro Legends, and only the second time that Damn Die ever played John Choi. So Damn Die worked his way through the bracket, playing a bunch of guys he's never played before. Fubar Duck, you weren't on the call last week. We didn't get your opinion on who you thought was going to win. Were you surprised by the results?
Actually, for ST at least, I definitely thought that Damn Die was going to win. I had a friend here from Austin who strongly argued with me otherwise. He said that Afro Legends would take it, like 100% sure. But I don't know. Like I've talked to Damien at a number of events, and I mean he's got like such a good Street Fighter mind, and he still develops and puts so much time into this game that it's really not surprising that the person who was the most dedicated and putting the most time into finding new stuff was the victor.
Eris, do you know Shoto Soliday? He's a SoCal guy.
You see him around, but I mean, I don't know him personally.
Well, I was going to ask you if you were surprised to see him pick up fourth place, because he did. But
I mean, honestly, I feel like the whole time I was just rooting for John Choi, and the fact that he got as far as he did, I kind of agree. Like, you never see the old guys get as far as you want them to get, and all these new punks that you see around are always winning. So I was rooting for John, and after he lost, I was like, fuck it, who gives a shit?
And then Spooky, you weren't on the call last week. Spooky, any surprises for you? Victor Slick?
I think maybe he's hitting buttons in the back over there.
I heard it, yeah. We'll get back to him in a bit. Moving on, we'll Street Fighter 3, Third Strike. That game, MOV
Hey,
wins.
sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Spooky, I was
sorry about
asking
that, my
you
bad.
if there's anything that was surprising for you with the results in Super Turbo, since you weren't on the call last week to get your opinion last week.
Not really. I feel like with the top three, it could have gone kind of either way. Choi could have just gotten it out there and won. But it seems like the top three pretty much as expected, I feel like.
Right on. Speaking of as expected, MOV handily wins Street Fighter 3. Just to lay it out there, he only lost 2 matches the entire tournament. Those 2 matches were both to Iji Momochi during winners finals. The rest of the tournament, he beats Nika KO 2-0, Tokido 2-0, Momochi 3-2, and then he ended up fighting Tokido again in grand finals, and he ended up beating him 3-0. So dominating performance from MOV, but like I said, as expected, almost everybody on the call last week was pretty much, firmly in favor of crowning MOV the champion before the tournament even began. I remember Gutex was talking about how MOV bopped people at SBO with a broken hand. So, Magus, were you surprised to see MOV dominate as much as he did?
I was shocked, Darry. It was incredible. No, I mean, come on. This is the guy who basically I think he was quoted as saying like the only other guy who even knows remotely how to play Third Strike is Kuroda. He was also saying like he feels like Chun-Li should be banned, like if they want the game to even be fair. I think
specifically, Andrew, sorry to cut you out. Specifically,
No,
he
go ahead.
said that his Chun-Li should be banned in tournaments.
That's what I thought. I didn't want to say that, but yeah, exactly. So, he's got a pretty firm grip on how to play Third Strike, and I think he's just playing a bunch of people who just aren't at his level, like not even close, like 5 years behind. So it was cool. It was good to see him in the U.S. soil, doing damage though.
Ryan, do you think there's anybody in Japan, or the world for that matter, who can come close to MOV's dominance in that game?
Kuroda.
And that's it?
Besides that, there are a few sleepers. I mean, if you want to go way back in the books, you can name people that if they had kept on with Third Strike would be on the same level. Like, everyone speaks really highly of like Deshiken, for example, Jay, and like all these people who were amazing up until like '05 and then kind of dropped the game. But yeah, as far as players who play now, I mean, there's very few people who have that dominance of like, Kuroda and MOV. And there are still people that are playing the game over at GameSpot Versus in Tokyo. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really put anyone on those two's level.
Eris, are people grinding this game still at Super Arcade?
Not particularly. Even though, because the FFA thing is coming up, so you see a little bit more third strike action than you used to, just because of the FFA thing, I think. But other than that, you get the scragglers that come in to play me, and that's it. Talk shit to me.
Would you say that it's fair to say that maybe Third Strike is kind of dead in America now?
Well, I mean, it's kind of has been. It's one of those games that it comes around every now and then. Someone shows up, or maybe someone has a tournament every now and then in the area and it picks up. But I gotta say, the Third Strike crew are the laziest group of guys in the universe. So I mean, it's just tough getting them together and getting them out.
Arturo, what's the Third Strike scene like out on the East Coast right now, man?
Like it's pretty much like those guys. It's similar to like the MK scene in the fact that they're kind of their own entity. So it's like you have guys sometimes at the next level, but like it's totally separate from what we're doing. So I mean, I guess it's the same as what Aris said. But as far as the results go, it's absolutely no surprise. I mean, like I'm not the biggest fan of Third Strike, but I really enjoyed watching the top three because seeing 3S at a high level, especially what MLV did to Tokido in the finals by picking Ken, was amazing. It was awesome.
Spooky, I don't really know how you feel about Third Strike. Is this a game you like?
I mean, I played Third Strike. I played Third Strike for a while when it was hot at CF. And I'm familiar with all the big players of the game. I'm familiar with how the game works. As far as the tournament itself, although I wasn't here last week to talk about it, I would generally agree that MOV, this guy is pretty legendary, even among Chun-Li players, and there are a lot of good ones. So it's not really a surprise to see him do so well. I will say that Mester was super disappointed when he lost. He had like this look on his face that was like, "Oh man, I'm supposed to be a Third Strike god. What is wrong with me right now?" And that was kind of the general sentiment among all these games. Even though we're talking about the expected guys that kind of won, there were a lot of guys there that tried really hard to get far and just looked devastated afterwards.
Yeah.
And Third Strike was definitely where I started to see that kind of those devastated faces start to come in. That was around that time. So
Well,
Yeah,
Mester,
he like
Go ahead.
staggered off the stage too when I saw him after that match he lost. So
Well,
he
I mean,
took it pretty rough.
should give you an idea of how competitive the tournament was when Mester was so disappointed, and he actually got fourth place. He lost losers finals to Tokido, and he got fourth. So he did lose kind of badly, though. He went 0-2 against Tokido in losers finals, and this was after he had lost 0-2 versus Momochi in quarterfinals in winners bracket. So he took a couple of hard losses in the bracket on the way up, but he still finished fourth place. So I mean, it's not too shabby against a group of killers like that. Moving on, we got Street Fighter 4. This was the game that I think we all agreed was the one that was the most up in the air, and I think it was the one everybody was the most interested to see as far as how it was going to turn out, because realistically, most of these guys in the bracket had at least a sound argument to be able to take, possibly take the title, for some of them, depending on how the bracket played out. But I guess the most surprising thing of the night, not necessarily Infiltration's win, but how he did it coming from behind in a from losers bracket to beat Daigo 6 straight after losing to Daigo 3 straight. Daigo put him into losers after beating him 3-0, and then Infiltration came back and he won 6 straight to defeat Daigo in grand finals. Ryan, I had heard that Daigo has been in the arcade the past few months from 10 a.m. to closing time every day getting prepared for this tournament. Have you heard similar?
Okay, I had to think if there was no other Ryans.
Fubar.
Yeah, anyway, yeah, as far as I know, yeah, from at least from all the interviews and stuff, it seems that he's been at the arcade every day at Taito Station. There on the what is it, southeast or southwest exit there in Shinjuku, I forget, but yeah, as far as I know, he's been there every day lately, and I imagine that dedication is part of what brought him so far in the tournament.
Do you know? I'll kind of leave this out there. I'm going to address it to Fubar Duck, but in case nobody else knows, does anybody have any idea about Infiltration's training regiment?
Um, I really don't know much except that, of course, we all know that Infiltration is friends with Laugh, and I know Laugh personally because he's actually from Texas originally. Um, he started with CVS2, and then he moved out to Korea after he finished high school. Um, but yeah, as far as I know, they have like a house out there, sort of like a FGTV house type deal, and I know it's Infiltration and Laugh, and I don't know who else is involved, but I know they grind a lot. So
Well, the Korean version of FGTV House is probably a lot less bullshit and a lot more video games. So,
well, I think it's a lot more video games and a lot less stream and revealing your technology to everyone else.
right.
Yeah,
Um,
probably a good strategy, I'd say.
Andrew, Snake Eyes got pretty far in the bracket. Was there anybody else that you were surprised to see do as well as they did, or maybe you were disappointed in seeing them do so poorly?
I was surprised that Street Fighter 4 didn't close the show. That's what I was surprised about.
For real, we talked about that last week.
Yeah, that was a blow up, man. But
Why didn't it? I don't even understand the logic to that.
it's because it's an older game.
I can explain. I can explain that one.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Cross Tekken was the newest game, and also it's Matt Dahlgren's baby. So of course, from the get go, when they first planned the 25th anniversary tournament, kind of the point of it was that Cross Tekken would be the featured game since it was the newest
Mm.
game. Of course, they didn't really expect that Cross Tekken would turn out the way it did as a game, but
Right.
there you go. So this was
Yeah,
all
but
kind of pre-planned by them, kind of from the beginning.
right. I mean, I understand that, but it feels like once they've kind of got the temperature of the scene and the tournament scene and how it's going and the numbers and everything, you think they would kind of compensate for it
I
and
agree. I
then
agree.
change it and be like, look, if we put I mean, like anybody could have told you like that room was gonna empty out after
Cross
Street Fighter
Tekken
4. Yeah.
Cross Tekken takes forever and it's not the most fun to watch. I agree with you, but
Yeah.
that's what I know of the situation basically.
Well, I read on Twitter a few people were saying that stream viewership dropped anywhere from 5 to 6,000
Wow.
after SF4 was off the air and Street Fighter Cross Tekken came on. So I don't know if that's a completely accurate
Yeah,
numbers.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, of course. And
Yeah,
I also gotta imagine that like the IPL guys are looking at that like, oh shit, like people don't,
But
like we're emptying rooms out with this game, and stuff like that. So, I mean,
well, I
that's a
mean,
sticky situation.
Eris, you don't really compete with either of these games, Street Fighter 4 or Street Fighter Cross Tekken. But do you feel like they made the wrong call putting Cross Tekken on last?
I mean, I understand both sides. I mean, they're running a business, and you can't. Pretty much, if they put Cross Tekken behind Street Fighter 4, they would be like agreeing with everyone else, like, yeah, it sucks, whatever. So they couldn't do that from a business perspective. So it's not what I wanted to see. Even though Cross Tekken wasn't that bad, actually, it was kind of cool this time around. But I don't know, whatever. It's their project. They could do whatever they want, I guess.
Well,
I
I think
enjoyed the whole thing.
compounding that, everybody's kind of disappointment to see Street Fighter 4 be the second to last game, not the showpiece, was the fact that the tournament itself shaped up so nicely. Top three were
Yeah.
all Evo champions.
The
Uh,
only Evo champions, right?
right, all three of the
Yeah.
Evo champions were in the top three of this tournament.
That's
So it was
awesome.
kind of like you couldn't have written a better bracket for how this tournament played out. And then to go from that into Cross Tech, and I think a lot of people were kind of disappointed. Um, Spooky, would do you feel like maybe IPL will I know you probably have heard some rumblings here or there. Do you think maybe they'll be able to take some lessons from this and possibly consider featuring Street Fighter 4 over Cross Tekken?
Oh, I do not know. What I do know is that Cross Tekken as a game is very tricky to display right. I think that definitely the featured game should be Street Fighter 4. No surprise because it's still more of an international game right now, although we do have some strong international players in Cross Tekken, and it's just a game that reflects and kind of shows what the Capcom roster is about a lot better than Street Fighter Cross Tekken does. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Arturo, as a producer of these type of events, how do you feel about that decision to kind of stick with it, stay the course and keep Cross Tekken on the end?
well, like corporate's involved, so it's really no surprise to me. They're gonna push their newest game, so it makes total sense to me. Like even if they knew the pulse of things going on, it's the newest product, and and like there's all this DLC involved. So
Right.
I'm not surprised in the slightest. But the thing I am surprised about, like, is how some of the players reacted, like, after they lost, and the results. Like, basically, a lot of players got demoralized, and it seems to be like a wake up call for a lot of people. And you can see, like, after this tournament, people are starting to change up their characters and just go all out and play top tier.
Well, I think that we mentioned this earlier. People were expecting Street Fighter 4 to be anybody's game. And what it turned into was North America and Europe getting handled by Asia. Um, and I think that anytime we're talking Street Fighter, there's kind of the expectation that it's going to be an uphill battle for North America. But at least with Street Fighter 4, North America seemed to have bridged the gap at points to the point where I felt personally that we were actually the best in the Super Street Fighter 4 era. But coming into this tournament, everybody felt like maybe it was at least, if not even, just a slight advantage for the Asians coming in, and they just blew America and Europe out of the water. What is it that you think? I'll direct this since I spoke to Arturo last this time. I'll speak to him first this time. What is it that you think personally is some of the cause of this dynamic developing, where the Asians are just dominating us at Street Fighter 4 specifically, and well, cross Tekken too. But what do you think they're doing differently than us to get to this point?
Like, it's another situation again where they have, like, a lot of advantages, like, being in a smaller concentrated area and being able to play each other, like, in matchups more often, especially for Japan and Korea. I mean, not so much Korea, because, like, in the Live on 3 interview where Laugh and Infiltration were interviewed by Slasher and DJ Wheat, they mentioned, like, how they don't have, like, a lot of offline competition after vanilla SF4. So what they do is they play online a lot versus the Japanese players. And even though the connection is not as good, like, as Korea, where it's, like, totally lag free, it's still, like, very playable, and they get a lot of them matchup experience through that. So as far as the Asians crushing Americans and Europeans, that's no surprise. My only surprise was that, like, Allion didn't go farther than what I thought he would do. I mean, like, like, he beat Ricky, and, like, like, he seemed to be doing well, but then after that, like, he went, like, 0-2, and he lost the game or beat off stream. So that was definitely kind of surprising on my end, but at the same time, Allion is. We talked about this last week about how he's kind of like a choke artist in high pressure situations. So it's no surprise there.
Fumarduk, you're the guy on the panel tonight that probably has the best handle on the Japanese fighting game scene. Arturo touched on a couple topics that were kind of, the go-to answers for that question every time it gets brought up through the years. Why is Japan better than America at Street Fighter? But some of the things, I mean, we saw America bridge the gap, like I mentioned, during the Super Street Fighter 4 era. Why is it that you think in the last year, since Evolution last year, the Asians have gone from being even with America in some cases to being, apparently after Street Fighter 25, way ahead of us again? What happened in this last year?
To be honest, I feel like the main thing that happened in the last year was the shift in America from the focus of SF4 to the focus on Ultimate Marvel.
Yep.
And I mean, before Marvel, SF4 was the main game. That's what everyone put their time into. It's what everyone focused on. But the West has this culture of, because we're so spread far apart, we have all of our tournaments, like all of our different games at the same tournament. Whereas in Asia, the way they do it is it's one game per event. So for example, you have a big Street Fighter 4 tournament in Tokyo. Well, it's just Street Fighter 4. You're not going to see Street Fighter 4, Marvel, and all this other junk in the same arcade or the same venue. It's just going to be one game. And I feel like Asia has, because of that culture difference, I feel like Asia has more specialists in games, and America has more top amazing players that just shift their focus to all these different games. And when you do that, and you shift your focus away from Tekken Tag 2 or from Street Fighter 4, you're not going to have the matchup experience to deal with these guys who have just been grinding the same game over and over.
I agree.
So, I mean, that's my personal opinion. I don't think it's that. Well, I mean, I will say for Japan that their offline is better because of the arcade scene, and their online is better because of fiber. So, their situation of playing against opponents is better either way. But, I feel like just saying that their scene is better would be ignoring, that would be sort of displacing the blame from us. And I really think that, U.S. players just spread themselves too thin.
Magus, do you think the proliferation of games like Marvel on the tournament scene has been detrimental to American Street Fighter?
Yes, but I think also not because I mean Fubar Duck basically said what I was going to say, but just to add a little, I think it also kind of has like a psychological effect on the tournament scene in general, where when the focus starts to get away from Street Fighter 4, even if you're only a Street Fighter 4 player, you kind of lose that drive. Whereas you felt like you were in some kind of situation with a whole bunch of people, running to the end of a finish line, basically, like who's going to get better first, who's going to be the best. And that was kind of what it was like for a couple of years till new games come out that people are actually playing, and then you're kind of like, oh, the scene's getting a little smaller. You see people leave. You don't see that hunger anymore. And it's just the same people dominating. There's not like this kind of vie for power anymore. So you just have this kind of like psychological shift as well in the kind of competitive mindset of players. And I feel like, I felt that too, being a Street Fighter 4 player primarily. And then when Marvel came out, I dabbled in it as well. And I really liked it. But I was like, then I was kind of caught in a void because I was like, well, I'm not playing either very well. I'm just kind of messing with both of them. So it kind of left my tournament life in this, weird purgatory. So, and I think I noticed that with a lot of other players as well.
Eris, Street Fighter 4 is primarily or is usually the most popular game at Big Two. Obviously competes, or and not at Big Two, excuse me, Wednesday Night Fights. Oops. Usually the biggest game at Wednesday Night Fights. Competes with Marvel, goes back and forth, but it's usually Street Fighter 4 lately, it seems. Are there people in the arcade grinding this game when they're, on Tuesday, on Friday night? I mean, is it just people there for Wednesday night to play Street Fighter 4, or are there people there all the time to play this game?
I was talking about this the other day, and I don't really know what the deal is, but after every Evo, everyone knows that it's kind of the calm, like it's over, Evo's over, and people kind of stop playing for a while. But after last Evo, I feel like just across the every game, people are competing a little less, it seems. I mean, I don't know if that the results we saw over the last weekend, reflect that, but it just seems like the general arcade goers are not there anymore. The general scene is a little bit smaller this year, and I don't know why. It's overall on Tuesday on a random day, maybe someone's playing, but they are definitely not going to be good. I'll tell you that. Until evening time, I don't know. I don't know where they're at, to be honest.
Um, Spooky, how about over at Next Level? It's Street Fighter 4 so popular at Big Two, but any outside of Big Two, are people still playing that game at Next Level?
I see generally when I see people playing casuals, I see more Marvel players than I see Street Fighter players. But there is still a dedicated crew of Street Fighter people that show up. I guess what helps is that Next Level has like all the Street Fighter cabinets that are in there. So that kind of helps because they have Street Fighter setups, but then they also have real like Street Fighter 4 cabinets in there. But anyway, it's not something that you're gonna see on like a Tuesday or like a Monday or even like a Thursday. But Friday night, which like a casual kind of day, you'll see a lot of Street Fighter players. Maybe Saturday, you'll see a lot of guys, stuff like that.
Right on. All right, and then real quick, let's touch on the last game of the night, Street Fighter Cross Tekken. A little bit more entertaining than a lot of people thought, primarily due to Seth LOL, and then his Kuma, which kind of had the Gen syndrome going on in the bracket, where you have a character running wild and people don't really know what to do with that character because they don't know what the character does. And he caught a few people napping and farted on their faces. So Infiltration, of course, wins Cross Tekken. He picks up another 25 grand and a car. Um, any word on how that's getting back to Asia, by the way? Is Capcom footing the bill for shipping on that? Anybody know?
I doubt
Yeah,
that's how it would work.
no, no, no,
Really?
no. I know how it works out. What they're gonna do is actually that there are dedicated like shipping dock companies that are made just for these types of things, shipping like cars overseas and stuff. So Capcom is gonna pay to fly the car out to a dock, and Infiltration will have to pay the rest of the way. But it's actually not as expensive as you would think. This is a pretty common thing people do all the time. They ship their cars overseas or whatever.
Right on. Well, Infiltration wins. He wins in the grand final against against who did he play in the grand final? That bracket's not updated. I don't remember.
He played Daigo in the grand final.
That's
No, cross second.
Cross
That was
Tekken.
That
Tokyo.
was
Sorry.
Tokido.
Oh,
yeah.
Tokido, sorry, yeah.
So he played Tokido in the grand final. And Tokido looked upset after the match.
Oh yeah,
Some
big
people were
time.
saying that he cried. And it probably was less to do with the fact that he lost Cross Tekken and more to do with the fact that he didn't win any of the games. Um, and he competed in all four games and did not walk away with any wins. And I know that he's the sort of competitor who takes this sort of thing very, very seriously. And to come close enough in a few, I think he was at least near top four in all the games, or in top four here in Cross Tekken, he was top two. To come so close and yet not walk away with anything is hard to take for a guy like that. Fubar Duck, you probably understand the Japanese fighting game player mentality the best. Were you surprised to see a guy like Tokido tearing up on stage after he lost like that?
I, to be honest, I wasn't surprised. And there's one thing that I was thinking that you didn't say just now, and I'll go ahead and say it. More so than the fact that he played in 4 games and didn't win any of them. Street Fighter Cross Tekken was the last game of the tournament, and he lost to a Korean player. So that means Korea won both Street Fighter Cross Tekken and Street Fighter 4. And so I think there's definitely like a sense of shame associated
Big
with
time, yeah.
like with Korea placing over Japan in the main games. And I think that's probably was a bigger issue than like him just not winning. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, there is an element of that, right? Where I think in America we don't understand that because we are so used to getting our asses beat by Japan,
Yeah.
right?
Or any insert Asian country here.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have a strong level of national pride as far as their ability to compete in Street Fighter, like the main brand games. And here they are in these 2 games, and they're losing both of them. Tokido was probably the best hope in Cross Tekken. Daigo was the best hope in Street Fighter, and neither one could defeat Korea, which is, I mean, Korea as a country has only in the last few years become this 2D fighting game, powerhouse. It wasn't so until recently, right?
Well, it's not just 2D fighting games; it's every game.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
it's every game.
Every game that
obviously
they
they do
play.
well. They do well in StarCraft. They do well in 3D fighters. But 2D fighters was an area where they really could. They were probably about on the same level as America in some games, and now they're competing and beating Japan and becoming, putting out the best player in the world right now. And with this win, 2 wins, Infiltration is making a very strong case for becoming an inductee into the 2D godshood. I mean, he is.
Yeah, he should put
Well,
back in there.
I don't know
But
about that. Do you guys are all Street Fighter players. Do you guys honestly feel like Infiltration being so good as he is at the games that he is good at automatically qualifies him to be one of the gods when I mean, come on. Daigo's been playing Street Fighter every Street Fighter. He's been doing Dragon Punches even in the shitty games.
Well,
You know,
here's my main argument for Infiltration being a god now is that Magus and I were at the venue and we were talking about talking about Daigo, and we were talking about how this guy is at level 4 Yomi now. Like he has transcended the game engine, and he's looking at the Matrix code at this point. Like if you watched him fight Dominion in Street Fighter 4, he picked him apart like mentally, like just opened up his skull, picked through his brain, picked out all the pieces, and tossed that guy aside. And it was beyond scientific. It was like he was playing with the formula. And to have Daigo playing at that level and then to get 6-0'd by Infiltration in the grand final, like that's unreal.
yeah, it is. But I think that's also kind of why you have that shift in top player mentality where everybody's crying about their characters. Because I don't think anybody could really sit there and believe that Infiltration is that much better than Daigo, that he's 6-0'd him after losing to him 3-0. A lot of them just tend to think, oh, it has to be Akuma. It has to be the fact that the kind of the tier shift is a lot larger than maybe we have first imagined. So I don't know.
and I think it's that kind of thinking that's keeping America so far behind the Asian countries, actually. I think the thinking of, oh, he's a god, or like he it's beyond strategy. It's beyond stuff like that. Is what he's a regular guy and he's not omnipotent in any way. It's just dedication and time and the means to apply yourself. It's dedication. And
Yeah,
right now,
but
at first it used to be arcades. Like America doesn't have arcades, but now the internet, dude. The future is here. You don't
sure,
even need that shit.
but if it's a simple equation is dedication and time and all that stuff. Well, if you put top tier character on the top of the chart, you're minimizing matchups, you're making your time more efficient, and you're making your life easier, which is
Yeah, but
just
there
it
are there
just
are many, many more players that have just as much time and means as Infiltration who play Akuma. I mean, it's a formula that in this case is just perfect because he's intelligent enough to utilize the tools correctly and he's dedicated. I mean, it's really not in my eyes, it's not as magical as perhaps some people think. But I've been watching Korean players train in Tekken forever, so I know the military style they have. They're real serious.
yeah,
So
I
maybe,
think I agree that it like I'm not saying it's because of his character choice. I wouldn't make that argument at all. I'm just saying the combination of a work-like attitude to taking the game, like Daigo, like Infiltration, and then, putting that on top of the fact that you're just starting the race ahead of everybody else with a better character, it just doesn't hurt. But like falling back to that argument, it's a cop out. Like, that I agree. I wouldn't make that argument.
Well, like
Arturo?
SF4. Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead, Darry.
Oh, I was actually going to talk to you. I was going to ask you. You're a guy who I have for years thought of as a character specialist and a guy who has a very firm grasp on the roster of games and like how you view the meta game. You talk a lot about, oh, this is a bad match for Rose, or this is a good match for Dalsum. Do you agree or disagree with the statement that Magus referenced, where some North American players are now saying that perhaps the tier list in Street Fighter 4 is not as compressed as they originally thought, and perhaps a character like Akuma is a little bit better than what was originally thought, and maybe he's kind of breaking the game a little bit?
Well, yeah, I agree. I think SF4 is Vortex Fighter 4, and it's gotten to the point. The game has gotten to the point where it's more about science. So, Infiltration, obviously, is putting the most work. He spent the most time in his lab getting his Vortex setups down. So him blowing it up is no surprise to me there.
Sure, for sure.
Mhm.
All right, Spooky, you have
Oh,
anything
no.
to add? We lose Spooky.
No, I just like to say that that Infiltration has entered and won pretty much every Street Fighter Cross Tekken tournament that he's ever entered,
Well, he
as far
he
as I know.
won.
And I think this is the first time he's even like lost in tournament. He actually got sent to losers first, right? And then he had to come back. Is that right?
Yeah,
So
he lost to
that's pretty crazy.
who did he
You
lose
lost
to?
to you lost to Tokido's
That's right.
Dalsum. You lost to Tokido's Dalsum Cody, which was kind of surprising considering his team has Relento on it, and Relento does really well against Dalsum. But he picked Jack X, which is kind of in the Dalsum matchup, like it's not that good, obviously. But when he switched to his main team, this kept Relento and Dalsum, like he pretty much blew up Tokido.
Man,
And then
I got
perhaps more amazing than the fact that he got first in both those games is that he had to come out of the losers to do it, which is to
in
me
both
amazing.
games.
In both
Oh yeah,
games.
and then
That's,
Seth
that's incredible.
Lolo like in Cross Tekken. I called the Dark Horse last week, and he pretty much tore up all of EG. He tore up all of the Cross Tekken Defense Force. He tore up all of North America by himself, and he only lost to Infiltration. And like I forget who else. I forget who else he lost to. But yeah, he got third place. He blew everybody up.
Yep.
All right. Well, next week, make sure you join us on the Fray. We're going to talk about this topic with regard to Tekken. We're going to talk about Street Fighter 25, how successful it's been, and then we're going to talk about Tekken and whether or not something like this could help out Tekken, whether or not they're going to be able to get a boost from MLG next year because the numbers in Tekken are not looking so good right now, but there's some stuff in the pipeline, and we're going to talk about Tekken next week with regard to events like these and whether or not those are going to make a difference for Tekken Tag 2. So tune in next week and catch that. We'll wrap it up tonight with a quick mention. There was announced at the tournament that longtime iPlay winner, CEO, and personal friend of ours, Lord Nidel Crison Hans himself, was hired as one of the new community managers at Capcom alongside longtime fighting game god and probably one of the best all-around Marvel players in the world, Combo Fiend. Peter Rosas was also hired alongside to be the other new community manager at Capcom. Um, Spooky, you worked side by side with Hans at the last couple Evos, and you worked with him at various tournaments and such. Um, you saw him the most at this weekend. What's his mood like right now? He seems pretty happy, doesn't he?
I think that this has kind of been a long time coming, for him. So he's kind of already known that this was gonna happen by now. Obviously, to get hired by a company like Capcom, it doesn't happen in a day. So I feel like he's kind of known that this was coming. But I think that it's good for him. It seems to be something that number one he wants to do, and number two that he has the ability to do because Haunts is definitely one of I would say top five streamers in America, along with myself, the Level Up Boys, and whoever else you would pick. But
And
what's
then
good?
whoever else.
I respect that.
Very, very political answer. I like it.
And whoever.
But but anyway, the point that I'm trying to make here is that Haunts is very good at what he does. And before this, let's be real, nobody really watched like the Capcom Unity streams or anything like that. But since the onset of Haunts, the Capcom Fighters channel is really popping. There's always something really hype going on there, whether it was one of the SO25 events or the other small, fighter introduction streams that they ran there. And it's a good thing for Capcom because they're going to be able to utilize him to promote their brand the right way. And hey, whenever the next time is they run a tournament of any kind, they've already got Horns there, and he knows what to do with the stuff. He's helped out with NCR, all the Southtown stuff, the whole deal. So he knows what he's doing in this regard. So he's definitely the right choice for them to make.
Eris, what do you expect from a guy like Combo Fiend at Capcom? What do you think he brings to the table?
Well, I mean, he's charismatic. He's been playing for years. He's got credentials. I mean, if I was Capcom and if I was looking for a community manager, who else would I want than someone who knows how to play fighting games and knows how to speak? And he's pretty handsome. I mean, you can't beat that.
No, he's a pretty good looking dude.
I'd do him.
I would definitely, I'd slip it to him.
All right.
All right. Well, we agree. Fubar Duck, what do you think that this means moving forward now that the Capcom has lost Seth Killian, but they picked up two guys, and then like Spooky mentioned, they have this focus now on digital media formats where they're building up their own Twitch channel now. They're building up their tournaments. What are you looking forward to personally from these new ventures with Hans and Combo Fiend?
Well, I do feel that Seth was a big loss to Capcom, but that aside, I think that Hans and Combo Fiend were excellent choices, and I think it's just like these guys said. I mean, these guys are going to be able to bring to the table, a true community voice to, direct, like, basically they're going to be able to speak to Capcom directly, on behalf of the community, essentially.
Yeah, that's a very good thing.
I mean, these guys, I consider these guys among us, and I always will, no matter what happens in the future. I'm sure there's going to be a reason for it. And it's one of those situations to where I know these guys aren't ever going to do anything slimy. So, I think they're excellent choices. And I feel that, I think everyone's had this conversation before in the past where you're talking to your buddies and you're like, man, why doesn't Capcom have more tournaments? Or why haven't they tried to promote their games through streams or whatever. And I feel like, maybe it was Cross Assault, I don't know, or maybe it was Dahlgreen's work, but I think, someone over in Japan finally realized that, hey, we need community representation in the company. So I don't know, maybe that's what happened. I have no idea. I don't have an inside source or anything, but yeah, I'm very happy to hear the direction this is going. I hope it goes a long way.
Right on. Arturo, you're a guy who's worked the last year or so, close abouts, in the corporate, like that space where corporate life and fighting games converge. Any words of advice for Hans and Combo Fiend as they move forward into their new jobs?
Man, if anything, when I got hired by MLG, I was the one hitting up Hans for advice. So you don't need no advice from me.
Yeah,
I just want to tell him
I've
good shit and good luck.
too.
I just want to tell him good shit and good luck. But as far as Combo, I don't really know what advice to give him since he's gonna be taking a Seth role or something. But and I guess Haunts is gonna be doing the streaming side, so it's kind of like a new realm for anybody, man. But I think like he'll be doing a lot of learning on the job, but he'll knock it out of the park, and I think he's gonna do what's right for the community. So I'm really happy to hear that. I mean, well, not only Night L, because like, that was already known, but the fact that Combo Fiend is on board with Capcom is definitely gonna be a good look, I think.
And then finally, Magus is kind of the end of an era. We spent the last 3 NCRs looking over at his goofy ass face in the producer's chair. That's the last time it'll probably happen again. Good friend of yours, I know for a fact. Anything you want to say to Hans as he moves into his new job at Capcom?
Yeah. I mean, you said it right. It all basically started, with his site and started in a garage, like a lot of things do. The U.S. has, been called a nation of inventors in their garage and stuff like that, and still true to this year in some sense. And it's good to see him get some success in the same field. So he's still here. He hasn't disappeared or anything. It is a little sad to see him leave the streets, but he deserves it. So it's cool, and I'm glad. Hopefully he'll be able to balance having fighting games and having Capcom gaming and all that as a job, and also still maintaining his love and remembering why he loves fighting games, because that's that is really easy to lose in the shuffle of a corporate world.
Right on. Well, that's going to be it for tonight. Thanks to all of our guests. Thank you to Eris from Avoiding the Puddle. Thank you to Fubar Duck. Thank you to Arturo Sanchez. Thank you to Spooky. Thank you to Magus1234. Thank you to Chris for all of the production work. Make sure you tune in next week. We're going to talk about, like I said before, we're going to talk about Tekken. We're going to talk about its performance thus far in the American fighting game scene. We're going to talk about the future for that game. Hopefully, we may try to get a couple more, not just Eris, but a few more Tekken players. Probably going to have the Spooky guys gone because I know those guys have been grinding Tekken hardcore. But we may have a little bit bigger than normal panel next week as we try to get some more Tekken voices on to talk about the game. So make sure you tune in, especially if you've been messing with that game. And then other topics as dictates throughout the course of the week. This is going to be a more normal thing here. We're going to be shooting to record these every Thursday night and get them out to you guys on Friday. So if you are enjoying them, make sure you subscribe to the iPlayWinner YouTube channel at youtube.com/iPlayWinner, which is where these will be uploaded first. And we have heard you guys talking about things like RSS subscriptions and MP3s. We're looking at quick and easy, painless solutions to those problems. So Chris is like, no, mess that, dude. I don't want to mess with that, but we'll see. At the very least, subscribe to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/iPlayWinner, and you can listen to TheFray when we get it up on the Fridays. Anybody got any of the final words before we cut out for the night?
Be cool.
I just want to say, Darry, you did a great job. 100% improvements from last week.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Thank you very much. All right, guys. If
Yeah,
you guys don't...
You guys want to say raffles?
Raffles. Leave that in. Yo, Hans, more raffles, please. That's my advice.
Yeah, that was a nice little Easter egg of Capcom holding those raffles, because I know we heard some like behind the doors kind of stuff from Hans about raffles, and I was just cracking up. So shout outs to raffles.
Like I heard Hans was trying to like not crack up at the raffles meeting.
Yeah,
yeah, Capcom. Oh man. Yeah, it's just an example of like corporate life and then fighting game culture like blending, where it's like you have to try so hard to like not laugh. We're having a meeting about raffles.
Oh my god, I would not be able to.
My advice to Hans: more raffles. Just keep it going. But,
yeah, more raffles.
All right.
From the raffle floodgate, man, I'm all for it.
Beware of raffle Batman. That guy's serious. All right. If there's nothing else, we'll catch you guys next week. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Later, guys.
Fray!
Yo, Fray!
Hey.